This is a tracker. I didn't really know what trackers were about 3 months ago, and when I learned what they were, I wasn't very interested. To me, the most exciting and inspiring parts of music are fluid and improvised, whereas trackers are this very strict grid reminiscent of a spreadsheet, and you're essentially performing data entry. So my first impression of this is that it would just completely kill my inspiration and will to go on. But I was wrong, and what kind of allowed me to see this was an idea that I had completely unrelated to trackers. And that's what we're going to do today. I've had about a week with this and had a great time, but I've not done that original idea yet. So I've saved it. The quickest possible history of trackers. So they've been around since the late 80s, and it's a form of sequencing using samples with a grid, with a matrix style grid that actually goes top to bottom instead of left to right. And each step of each track is completely malleable. So it's not like you have your guitar and your bass and your drums. Each step you can completely reinvent each track. That will make sense as we go. Trackers were one of the very first, if not the first, ways to make music on a computer. They were the predecessors to DAWs and were used for all kinds of video game music. Trackers are still around. Renoise is one software tracker that is popular, but while they're commonly used for electronic music and chiptune, I think there's a lot more that can be done, and I will try to demonstrate that today. So let's use a tracker for experimental music. Okay, we're here with the tracker. Now before we start from scratch, I do want you to have a very basic understanding of what you're seeing as we go along. So I've loaded up the chord, the classic knobs chord that I used to start this video, so you can get your eyes on stuff. Cool. This is kind of the homepage of a tracker. This is where you'll spend a lot of your time. And you'll notice that things are going from top to bottom. That's how things play. And here you have your tracks, track. Now each track is made up of these 4 pieces of information, and that's what these buttons control. It allows you to isolate and work on them. And that is the absolute heart and core of a tracker and what makes them special. This project just has this one sample here. That whole pattern is this one thing. And then I used these 4 fundamental blocks to adjust that. You have note information, you can change the instrument, which in this case has no value, and you can add effects. And effects in trackers are a little different. It fundamentally means anything that changes that sample on a per step basis. So that could be, there's our little list. That could be volume, which is what I have here. I just dropped the volume for that step. And this is kind of the interesting thing about trackers, is that while you have this grid and it actually can make things look a little rigid and mathy, what this matrix allows you to do is really it's like, I think of it as granular sequencing, where each step is completely independent. So you could compose a whole song on track 1, and just use these effects and use different instruments and different notes on each one. And of course they'd cut each other off, so it'd be a monophonic song. But you can just do drastically different things as you descend on one step, and that's the flexibility. And what's really nice is you still have the ability to mute and manipulate tracks as a whole. So you have like a master section here where you can mute tracks, and you also have, and this is I believe unique to any other tracker and very well suited to hardware is this performance section where you can punch in all of these different effects. Yay, and that sets which of the tracks are affected down there. So that's a unique thing, and that's this kind of cool interplay that you get where you have the ability to completely separate the steps of a track from each other, but also still treat them as one thing if you like. So it gives you this really unique organizational flexibility that gives trackers their power. Okay, so let's get into some things. Now, this isn't the idea that got the whole ball rolling. I want to do that live together, but this is the next idea that followed that one. And I've done that in advance as a way to get to know the tracker and show off what it can do. So what I've done is I've taken a single guitar loop that I pre-recorded, and I've used the tracker's abilities to turn that into various things. So let's hear the loop. So what you can see is I've loaded this up a lot of times because I did a lot of things to it that I'll show you, but they're all the same loop. That's the loop. Okay, so here is thing one. Okay, so kind of similar to what I did with the chord, except that I took the idea a little further, and you probably heard there were some synth notes in there, and those were actually derived from the loop as well. It's all coming from there. So pattern 2. Okay, so that was a really simple one, and what I did here is the fastest thing ever. I'm going to in fact redo it right now. Is I used Tracker has this really nice feature called fill that allows you to do things quickly. And so all I wanted to do here was keep the same length of the loop and have it do a playthrough, but just kind of randomly regenerate the order of playback to create something new from it. So we're going to do fill, and we're going to say each 4 steps, we're going to add the instrument 1. All right? And we fill. Oh, you got to do select all. So select all, fill, same stipulations, and there we go. Each 4 steps you have that loop playing. Cool. Now, yeah, back to the beginning. Now, of course, you can. It doesn't have to be each 4, right? You can have them randomly assigned. And you can do this for notes, you can do this for effects, you can do this for samples. Okay, so I just wanted to start by laying that down quickly. But what I want to change in a more random fashion is samples. So I'm going to change position. You can use the knob for that too if you want. What I'm going to do is change the position. And instead of constant, I want it to be random. And I can set the position anywhere I want. So yeah, 0 is fine. We can start from the beginning, and I learned that you don't want to go too high here because the loop will actually cut off before it reaches the next point. So we'll go to about 80, and we'll fill. So there we go. We have the thing, and now we have a new pattern generated. Idea 3. fun. So one of the first things I noticed with the tracker, and I don't know if this is a beta thing or just the nature of it, is that samples can degrade quickly when you start to repitch them. So, you know, that's the original pitch. If we get down here, you're starting to hear some digital dust and noise build up, and I decided to take advantage of that. So I pitch things way down, that's C1. So one cool thing you can do is kind of hear the changes as you go. So I pitched it down, but I also edited it. So you have this sample editor where you can apply all these effects, and I bit crushed them. One other thing that I did here that's relevant is I started to use, so when you see in the sample loader, I loaded a whole bunch of samples. And the reason I did that is so I could do things like this, like bit crushing it, or doing things like you can apply an envelope or some filtering to it. So these are all things that you can do to each instrument. Adjust the panning, filtering, etc. And so here I've added like a swell, like a soft attack, so that this is more of like a soundscapey thing instead of an abrupt loop that starts. Alright, let's hear number 4. So, that's still being derived from that loop, and that's where you get into this sample playback menu. So I created a wavetable from that. Here's the sample. Cool, and we can turn it into all kinds of things. We can slice it, blah, 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 but I want the wavetable. Ooh, sounds. So I like to shrink my wavetables because you get a lot of metallic nonsense and complexity that frightens me. The smaller you make that window, I find the cleaner and more pure it is. And then you can just move around, so you're essentially isolating pieces of a waveform, and then they loop, and that gives you the impression of an oscillator. Not the impression, it turns it into an oscillator. And so however that waveform happens to be, you get that in oscillator form as opposed to like a square wave or a triangle or a saw. So just another way to turn your samples into synth sounds. I found this useful for creating the drum sounds that I use. So, you know, there you have it. And obviously this one is it's actually a more standard approach to trackers in terms of like how a project is laid out and making chiptune-y type sounds. But it is cool that I like the idea. I like the idea of this device being the kind of thing where if you only had one sound, you can just record one sound, and that's all you have forever. You can get quite far with something like this, and that really gives it a lot of merit as a standalone thing. It's like you could make a whole record with one sample, probably. Maybe not the best record ever made. Let's hear it one more time, and then let's do something else. Okay, great. So we're here with all of our wonderfully auto-named samples. What I'd like to do is I'd like for the whole song to happen over 128 steps, and I'd like a fairly slow tempo. This is what I know. Now, the plan here is to try and use these samples in their pure form and somehow get them to mesh. I'd like to avoid, if possible, getting into too much weird editing. I want it to sound kind of natural and acoustic, so let's just choose a starting point here. Great. I do like that sound. So let's go to that first step. And we'll just add that instrument. That was the last one. Cool. All right, let's begin. So what we're going to do here is just play this and choose the next moment where an event should occur. So I think at about 10, I'd like something to happen. And I'm going to use this track so this one can continue playing, otherwise it would be choked. And let's just listen to some samples. Okay, I think I like that, but not in that step. So what we'll do is paste it here, delete that one, and I think I'm going to need some micro timing. I'm probably going to need a lot of micro timing for this because each step is taking up so much of the song. There we go. I think that sounds nice. So let's get micro move in there. And something in that range, I bet. Now, I want that to have a more gentler appearance, so we'll bump up the attack. Okay, that's good. I know I'm in a nice place when I feel a little confused and also pleasant. That's my sweet spot. All right, about there, I'd like an event to happen. So let's choose another sample. Yeah, I like that. So I can tell we're leaning into something a little forlorn here. And actually, a lot of the samples won't fit with that, but it's too late. Oh yeah, yep, they're gelling. This is good. And I might start, I think I'm gonna lean on this as a recurring thing. I think it's gonna come back about here, it looked like. So let's do that. Oh yeah, damn, this is gonna work. There's no guarantees. So what I'm wondering about here is maybe cutting this one off. So there's a few ways you can cut off the sound. If you rotate left when you're in the note position, you can introduce a fade or a cut of the sound. Cut is more abrupt, obviously. Fade kind of has a gentler slope. So I think that's probably a little too soon. I think about here might do it. If you leave record on, you'll stay in the spot that you're at as it plays. If you turn it off, it'll follow the playhead, which I want to do in this case. Yep, I'm confused and I feel good. This is the recipe. What I can start doing now, if I'd like, if the other samples aren't working, I can start slowing them down. And like this one, for example. In fact, I'll start with that and see how it fits. It's odd. I think right now it jumps out too much, but I think it's nice and actually wonder about using it elsewhere as well. Maybe about there. Could mask that swell. Now here I think we can introduce a moment that's more abrupt or commanding attention. It's about time for something kind of interesting. That one. Yep, that's great. And I'm gonna have to fade it again, so just quickly throw in this spot, which means that we still need another moment, because we're introducing elements that are nice and helping, but they're not carrying the momentum forward. I hope you're also getting a preview from this of kind of, I mean, this, not that this is like a standard workflow for me, but this kind of reactive style of music making that I really appreciate. Oh yeah. Okay, so I would listen to that. I'm very happy with how that is going. And I think we have ourselves in a position now where there's a lot of options. Up to this point, it was kind of like a limited number of options based on what happened before. But I think things kind of have a micro resolution or whatever. These aren't real terms. That we can now kind of start fresh in any way that we want. But I do not want to go through hours of footage, and I can tell I'm going to be here for a while. So I'm just going to do my thing here and burrow in, and I will play the results now.